The Black Fruit Story. Once upon a time, somewhere, there was a kingdom famous for its laurel forest. This kingdom was surrounded by laurel trees. This is why the kingdom stays green every season. In the summer, the laurel trees, which embellish the kingdom with white flowers, have even inspired the name of the kingdom, the White Flower Kingdom. From time to time, King Tort Khan took over this kingdom. This king was very cool and very fearless. He was a frightening king, famous for his dull and angry gaze. It was said that he did not cry even when he was born. Besides this, the king was very greedy and ambitious. This greed and ambition are reflected in the laurel trees. There was a famous soap made by the White Flower Kingdom using the leaves of laurel trees, and this soap was demanded by other kingdoms. On the other hand, furniture made from the trunk of laurel trees was also very strong. Also, the dye essence was made by crushing the flower. All these activities were commercial income that would bring a lot of profit to the king Tort Khan. Tort Khan started to cut more laurel trees and make more sales to increase these income generation productions. Days passed in the great kingdom of white flowers, and only one laurel tree remained. The woodsman, who came to cut him on the king's order, lifted his axe and drove it into the tree trunk. Blood started flowing from where it was stuck. Blood flows like a flood. The woodsman was surprised. The woodsman was frightened when the blood began to flow rapidly and rushed to inform people in the square, but the bloodshed came from before him. The people of the kingdom went to their king, the Tort Khan. The Tort Khan was in surprise and fear. He set out his knights towards the place where the blood came from. Before long, the king and his knights arrived at the place where the last tree was supposed to be, but they could not see any trees. The king looked around and saw a girl sitting back instead of the tree where the last by tree was cut. King Tort Khan asked him who she was. The girl slowly turned her face to ice. "I am the fairy Daphne, the daughter of the river god Peneus." King Tort Khan and his knights were astonished. Daphne captivated them with her breathtaking beauty. Her hair is earthy brown, eyes are leaf green, and her skin is bayflower white. And she continued, "The laurel trees that gave your geography our reputation were my essence. What did you do to them? You cut and ripped hundreds of them for your benefit. You have hurt both me and your kingdom. You cut the lost laurel tree, my last piece, and after centuries I am turned into a fairy from the tree, and I was seriously wounded with your axe. This wound will be great punishment to you and me. These lands will end up in drought as they are watered by constant blood, and eventually I died. Your land will be scorched and in an endless drought, and I will not die until you have land that my blood has not touched," said. King Tort Khan asked anxiously, "Is there a remedy for this?" Daphne answered, "If you heal me, I will turn into trees again, and the laurel trees will live again on earth. But you must cure me without the soil left without watering my blood. Otherwise, I will die, so your kingdom will be damned by an eternal drought." One of the knights was shown. "So how do we heal you? For every tree your king cuts with his greed, pour a drop of tear into my wand, save the wand with a wire of his hair for every leaf he cuts. Then I recover and turn into a tree again. So the laurel trees will live and your kingdom will be saved from the curse." While Daphne was describing this, her blood continued to flow like a flood. The king knelt next to Tort Khan Daphne and looked into Daphne's eyes. Daphne was startled because she was a fairy who had never touched any human being before. The king stared into Daphne's eyes and could not cry. Daphne put both hands slowly on the king's cheeks, while eyeing the king. At the moment, the king's eyes changed from royal blue to white. What Daphne did to king is unknown, but the king's eyes are wide, Daphne's hands on his cheeks sewing. Third Khan, who would not cry even at the bird, sobbed between Daphne's hands from sunset to sunrise, and became the first person Daphne touched. While the king was shedding his tears on Daphne's wand, one of the knights snapped every strand of his hair with tweezers, which could not afford by every leaf the king pulled off. When sunrise happened, the tears of the king were exhausted and Daphne's bleeding stopped. The third Khan, on the other hand, could not open his eyes that were swollen from crying. The most powerful physician of the kingdom was able to save Daphne's big wand with each of her King Khan, who was bald and blind at sunrise. When he made the last stick, the wand closed with blue light. Daphne's blood on the trees of the kingdom turned into dry leaves. The earth was drawn, Daphne for it, and where the last tree was cut, the first laurel tree grew again. The kingdom looked after him, and over the years regained to old laurel forests. King Third Khan paid the price of his greed and the slaughter of trees with his eyes and hair. The king disappeared mysteriously a few days after the incident took place. After the disappearance of the king, the laurel trees began to bear black fruits, even though they had never yielded fruit before. According to legend, Daphne fell in love with the king Third Khan and took him to her. Thus, the king disappeared and became the black fruit of the laurel trees. The end. Voicing by Yağmur Ekmekci. Teacher Fatma Boztepe. School Beşiktaş Atatürk Anadolu High School.